the first sort of set of challenges is that Waterfall rests on impossible assumptions. The biggest one is that 100% of requirements can be predicted up front, right? You can think back on this and think of a project you've ever done where requirements were never changed by the client or the product owner throughout the life cycle of the project. That almost never happens. And similar is that each phase of the project can be perfected before moving on to the next phase. This one is something that's just doesn't become a reality in software development. And next, we have timeframes and budgets can be predicted up front. Now, this is one, of course, that strikes most people close to home. This really never happens in software development. And finally, that feedback from real users is not valuable. I think most of us who have experience in software development know that when you put a real user in front of the software, you learn all sorts of things about what you assumed the user would do and the way that they really behave with the software. So drawing just on our own experiences, we can clearly see that these assumptions don't hold. But the whole world of waterfall software development today, and which means most of the world, rests on these principles. But it's not just these waterfall assumptions that create problems. It's other core elements of the thinking that create challenges. The first is this idea of bundling risk, which is a way of thinking in waterfall. If you have a project that has several features, in a waterfall project, what you're doing is you're bundling those features together. You're treating them as one unit, and each of them sort of goes through as a unit, they go through the waterfall. And you're waiting till each phase of the waterfall process is done for all of the features before you move on to the next. So what's the problem? Well, when you treat everything as one big unit, you're bundling both your risk in terms of dollars and cents, and also in terms of time, because it's going to take a lot of money and a lot of time to go through the entire waterfall cycle on all of your features. So the problem there, of course, is you spend all that time and all that money before you know if your software is any good. And that's sort of a scary thing. And this problem of bundling risk relates directly to the next problem, which is about communication. It's poor and mostly irrelevant, and by that I mean it mostly happens at the wrong time in waterfall development. If you look at the timeline, after the requirements are gathered, the development team is sort of isolated from the client as they go down the waterfall methodology process. As they're building, as they're testing, they're doing this all in a vacuum. And the doors of communication are really only opened at the end of the project, when the project is deployed for the client to review. So sort of based on our own experiences, we have a sense here that the client's expectations are not likely to be met, right? We know intuitively that they're going to have a lot of feedback because they always do. But at the end of the project, that feedback's not so relevant because everything is already built and it's a lot harder and more expensive to change. So we see that, we have core assumptions in Agile that cause problems, bundling risk, flawed communication. So now what? Well, if we look back in history, many of the thought leaders in the space were significantly dissatisfied, over time, and they decided that they had to do something about this. And Agile was born. Agile was born out of these problems, and when it really came together was when 17 thought leaders came together in February 2001 and authored what's known as the Agile Manifesto. And the Agile Manifesto has sort of 4 core pillars. Now the whole idea here is to uncover better ways of doing software development, but there's these 4 key pieces. One is individuals and interactions are valued over processes and tools. Working software is valued over comprehensive documentation. And customer collaboration is valued over contract negotiation. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, responding to change is valued over following a plan. So it may sound very broad here when you first think about the Agile Manifesto. So let's dive into the specifics. The first and perhaps most important concept of agility is unpredictability. Really, that's what this is all about. That's what we've been talking about this whole time, is this idea that you can't predict things up front. So Agile is built around chaos theory, right? And chaos theory states that, predictable processes need to be followed or need to be treated in a way that's different than unpredictable processes. So the core idea here is that the number one skill set in software development is actually not just creating good software or going over a mechanical plan, but adapting to change. Because we know that throughout the journey of software development, things are bound to change.